Good morning and welcome. Today, we're diving into the dynamic world of global markets and international trade. Our presentation is titled Global Markets in Action, and we'll explore how international trade not only drives economies, but also influences trade policies worldwide. As you can see from the image behind me, the bustling activity at ports symbolizes the crucial role that shipping and logistics play in connecting markets across the globe. Let's get started and uncover the forces shaping our global economy. Here's an overview of the module roadmap. First, we'll start by understanding global market connections, how markets across different countries link together to facilitate international trade. Then we'll explore the gains from specialization, focusing on how countries benefit by concentrating on what they do best. Next, we'll look at the unequal gains distribution, seeing how the benefits from trade are shared unevenly among participants. After that, we'll examine the impact of tariffs and quotas, analyzing how trade restrictions change market outcomes, affecting prices and quantities. Finally, we'll evaluate trade restrictions by assessing the arguments economists make both for and against barriers to trade. This roadmap will guide us through the key concepts and help us build a solid understanding of international trade dynamics. Here we see how international markets function by connecting buyers and sellers across different countries. These connections rely heavily on factors like prices, exchange rates, transportation, and trade agreements to facilitate the flow of goods and services. When the cost of a product in one country is lower than in another, it creates an opportunity for goods to move from lower-cost producers to buyers willing to pay higher prices. This exchange not only balances supply and demand on a global scale, but also highlights the importance of efficient logistics, like the cargo ship shown here, in enabling smooth trade across borders. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for grasping how global markets operate and impact economies worldwide. Here we explore the reasons why countries engage in trade. One of the main factors is that countries differ significantly in their resources, technology, climate, skills, and what consumers prefer. Because of these differences, it makes sense for each country to specialize in producing certain goods more efficiently than others. By focusing on what they do best, countries can produce higher quality or lower cost products. Then, through trade, they exchange these goods with others, benefiting everyone involved by gaining access to products they cannot produce as efficiently themselves. This specialization and exchange drive economic growth and improve the variety of goods available worldwide. The image here highlights a busy port, symbolizing the dynamic flow of goods and the importance of maritime trade in connecting nations. Here we have a horizontal bar chart that compares key economic benefits before and after trade. On the x-axis, we measure the level of these benefits, while the y-axis lists the categories: lower prices, greater product variety, and larger market access. Notice how lower prices decrease from 100 to 70, indicating a reduction, which is a positive effect as prices have dropped. Meanwhile, greater product variety significantly increases from 50 to 120, showing that trade has vastly expanded the range of products available. Similarly, larger market access jumps from 30 to 90, highlighting how trade opens up bigger markets for businesses and consumers alike. This visual clearly demonstrates that the gains from trade are substantial, with product variety and market access seeing the most dramatic improvements. It's a strong illustration of how engaging in trade can enhance economic opportunities and consumer choices. Here we focus on the concept of comparative advantage, which is all about producing goods at a lower opportunity cost than others. This means a country is more efficient in what it sacrifices less when producing a certain good. Specialization ties into this by allowing countries to concentrate on producing what they are best at, or what costs them the least in terms of giving up other goods. By doing so, they can increase overall production, benefiting both themselves and their trading partners. This idea is a cornerstone of trade economics and helps explain why international trade can be so advantageous. In discussing the winners and losers from trade, it's important to recognize both the positive and negative impacts. On the positive side, trade benefits consumers by offering lower prices and a wider variety of products. This variety enhances consumer choice and affordability. Additionally, exporters and efficient firms benefit from access to larger markets, which supports business growth and economic expansion. However, there are also challenges. Workers and firms in industries that compete with imports often face job losses or economic pressure because they struggle to compete with cheaper or more efficiently produced goods from abroad. These affected sectors may find it difficult to adjust in the short term, which can lead to economic hardship in certain communities. This balanced perspective helps us understand the complex effects of trade on different groups within the economy. Here we see how modern trade is no longer just about finished products moving from one country to another. Instead, it's about parts, components, and services crossing multiple borders as production processes are spread out globally. This interconnected production allows companies to optimize costs by sourcing where it's most efficient, tap into specialized expertise around the world, and respond more quickly to changing demands. The image of the busy shipping dock illustrates this complex network, showing cargo being moved and handled as part of global supply chains that keep everything connected. Understanding these trade patterns is crucial for grasping how international business functions today. Here we see the economic impacts of implementing a trade barrier on the domestic market, illustrated through this stacked bar chart. On the x-axis, we have key economic categories such as price, quantity, consumer surplus, producer surplus, and deadweight loss. The y-axis measures the value either as an index or in dollars. Before the trade barrier, prices were stable at 100, and quantities sold were at 200 units. Consumer surplus, which reflects the benefit buyers receive, was quite high at 500, while producers enjoyed a surplus of 300. Importantly, there was no deadweight loss, indicating an efficient market without wasted resources. After introducing the trade barrier, prices rise significantly to 130, while the quantity sold drops to 150, showing reduced market activity. Consumer surplus decreases sharply to 300, meaning consumers are worse off due to higher prices and less availability. However, producer surplus increases to 400, benefiting domestic producers thanks to reduced foreign competition. The trade-off here is the emergence of deadweight loss, which goes from 0 to 50. This deadweight loss represents the overall economic inefficiency caused by the trade barrier, essentially lost welfare that neither producers nor consumers benefit from. This chart really highlights how trade barriers protect producers, but at the cost of higher prices, reduced consumption, and overall market inefficiency. Here we see how tariffs affect key economic variables, such as domestic price, quantity traded, government revenue, and deadweight loss. Without a tariff, the domestic price is 50, and the quantity traded is 100, with no government revenue or deadweight loss. When a tariff is imposed, the domestic price rises to 65, reflecting the added cost of the tariff. Consequently, the quantity traded decreases to 80, showing reduced market activity due to higher prices. The government collects revenue from the tariff amounting to 500, providing a source of income. However, this comes at a cost to overall efficiency, represented by the deadweight loss of 200, which indicates lost welfare in the market. This chart clearly illustrates the trade-offs involved in imposing tariffs: higher prices and government revenue, but lower trade volume and economic efficiency. Here, we're looking at two important concepts that affect international trade beyond just tariffs. First, import quotas. These are limits set on how much of a particular good can enter a market. By controlling supply this way, countries aim to protect their own domestic industries from being overwhelmed by foreign competition. It's a direct way to manage trade volume. Then, we have non-tariff barriers, which are a bit more subtle, but equally impactful. These include licensing requirements, standards, and administrative procedures that don't involve taxes, but still restrict trade. They often act as hidden protections by making it more difficult or costly for foreign goods to enter the market, effectively limiting competition. Both quotas and non-tariff barriers shape trade flows and can influence the competitiveness of global markets. The image of the forklift moving a shipping container reminds us of the physical movement of goods, which is controlled by these policies behind the scenes. Here we explore some key arguments for restricting trade. First, protecting infant industries is crucial. These are new and emerging sectors that need time to grow and develop without facing immediate pressure from established foreign competitors. By shielding them temporarily, we give them a chance to build strength and compete internationally in the future. Next, preserving jobs is another important consideration. Restricting trade can help maintain employment within domestic industries that might otherwise be undermined by cheaper imported goods. This helps support local economies and workers who depend on these industries. Finally, national security is a vital argument. Relying too heavily on foreign suppliers for critical goods can be risky, especially when it comes to items essential for national defense. Restricting trade in such cases ensures that important resources remain secure and under domestic control. These 3 points together highlight why some level of trade restriction can be strategic and beneficial for a country. Here we're looking at 2 different trade policy approaches: free trade and protectionism. On the left, free trade encourages efficiency and benefits consumers by fostering competition and allowing countries to specialize in what they do best. This can boost long-term competitiveness, though it does mean industries might face some risks from global market changes. On the right, protectionism focuses on shielding domestic industries, which can help preserve jobs and support local development. However, it might lead to higher costs for consumers and reduced efficiency. The overall benefit of protectionism really depends on the specific industry and whether there's strong evidence that intervention will actually promote growth. Understanding these trade-offs is key to making informed policy decisions. Let's focus on some key takeaways from our discussion. First, trade increases gains by allowing countries to specialize in what they do best, which leads to more efficient production overall. This specialization is guided by comparative advantage, meaning countries produce goods at lower opportunity costs, maximizing efficiency. However, it's important to remember that the benefits of trade are not distributed equally. Some groups and regions within economies benefit more than others, which can lead to uneven outcomes. Finally, while trade has many advantages, barriers to trade introduce costs and inefficiencies that need careful consideration before they are implemented. These points highlight the complexity of trade and the importance of balancing its benefits and challenges.